Today is an exciting conversation for me because I get to put on my marketing ops hat a bit, which is great. And that's something I get to do here often. So one of the main topics that we continue to get questions about from our customers, from our prospects, from the community, from investors, from everybody, is, okay, AI is here, obviously, but it is dramatically impacting SEO. How do we track GEO? What do I do to make GEO work? What is GEO? What's the difference between SEO and GEO? We get questions about this all the time, and I imagine the folks here and the folks that are watching do as well. So that is why we have asked Evan Bailyn here to join us. We've been connected for years now. And I've been incredibly impressed with Evan and his team's approach to solving this. And we wanted to kind of use this fireside chat conversation as a way to lift the veil a bit on how to pull this off. It's not as much of a black box as people think. And it does take an incredibly talented individual to pull this off, which is why Evan is here, and you're going to be hearing a lot from him and not me, not Reese, for sure. So a lot of you have been with us before and have joined these before, but for those of you that haven't, I'm Alex. I'm one of the two co-founders here at Domestique. We're a fractional revenue operations agency that focuses on marketing ops, sales ops, customer success ops, go-to-market, tech stack work, and now implementing AI for all of our customers as well. And one of the things we try to do with this monthly RevOps Masterclass series is bring in folks that have a really specific area of expertise. So, Evan, thank you for being here. Excited to have you. And why don't you go ahead and give an introduction as well.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. I'm Evan Bailyn. I'm the CEO of First Page Sage. I founded First Page Sage, which is an SEO and GEO agency 18 years ago. I have been studying SEO since 2003. It's a lot of years. I can't believe that's true. Basically, a combination of writing and reverse engineering algorithms is what I'm best at in life, and that has put me square into the SEO industry and GEO since 2023. So excited to chat with you guys about this.
Awesome. Well, one of the things I want to kind of start with is, asking for you to define for everybody, like, what is the difference between SEO and GEO?
Yeah, so SEO is the art of getting your website to rank at the top of Google's organic search results. And GEO is the art of getting high rankings on ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, Grok, Claude. So really all the AI platforms. I think both of them are organic lead generation. I do not consider GEO to be about visibility, which is kind of the biggest buzzword. That would be a prerequisite for, ranking and getting leads. But I think of it as lead generation.
I love that. And is it fair to say that what is good for one is good for the other?
It is, but in very specific ways. If you just try to rank highly on Google for just any keyword, or most keywords, I would say, that is not going to get you leads on ChatGPT. You have to focus on transactional keywords, commercially valuable keywords, as opposed to research keywords for the most part, which I can dive further into, but just
we would love that. I think like one of the things that we get asked a lot from our customers is like, well, if I'm doing all the best practices to rank highly on Google, isn't that going to take care of my GEO strategy? So if there are specifics there, we would love to hear it.
Yeah, even though I'd say like a little over 50% of good GEO is good SEO, I would say that if you just are doing SEO and not thinking about GEO and thinking it'll roll over, that's wrong. Like, you're not going to succeed if you do that, because you have to do that 50% in the right direction.
Yeah, I love that. So talk to me a little bit about the SEO and GEO timeline here? Like when did this start to, because it came on to a lot of people's webinar in this community. I know that you work with a ton of different industries, and in our world, right, RevOps, B2B SaaS, software, right? There was a pretty meaningful article that came out a while back where HubSpot, right, which is one of the major players in our space, you know, and is known for their high quality inbound organic traffic. All of a sudden, their inbound organic traffic fell off a cliff, and yet revenue is increasing. Right now, part of that is a pricing strategy and whatnot, but part of that is, well, they were ranking for GEO, so that's when it started to get on a lot of people's radar here. But talk to us more broadly about like the timeline here and when this really started to come into play.
Well, ChatGPT came out in December 2022. By around that time, people in tech were very interested in it and started to use it fairly quickly. However, the average person wasn't using it, let's say outside of the high-tech world, that much for what we're talking about today until the summer of 2025. That's when it exploded. And this is not anything other than my experience, but I speak to a few hundred companies every year, and I have, like for our business, I have never seen so much interest in anything related to SEO or well, in this case, it is GEO. In my career, it's amazing the interest in GEO. People are just kind of waking up and realizing we need this, and that started in the summer. I would say that in 2023 and 2024, people started using it to research, and it really replaced Google when you were saying, I want to compare the iPhone 14 to the iPhone 15. I want to get a cocktail recipe. Just realized that people realized that Google did not do as good of a job at that, where with a cocktail recipe, for instance, you have to listen to someone's or read someone's life story first before you just get the thing you're looking for. But this just got right to the point, and it's better for research. But people only started typing in transactional searches and basically spending money in high stakes situations for their business around the summer last year. So that's
cool.
Really,
Cool. Is it fair to say that if folks are not playing around with this, experimenting with this, taking advantage of this, trying to optimize for this now, they are going to be in a bit of a world of hurt in 6 months, a year, 18 months?
Absolutely. I mean, it's simply put, think about how much you use ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude for research, including commercially valuable research where you're making purchasing decisions. And just think of all the decision makers in your industry, and there's your answer. You must be good at this. As much as really since my career started, SEO has and Google has always been so important. It's the first time I've ever seen in my career SEO become a lot less important, and GEO has simply taken that space.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that we try to do as a RevOps agency is, because AI has and is infiltrating, every part of go-to-market, everything from SEO to the tech stack itself. There's a debate in our community around whether or not a CRM should be vibe coded or if they should purchase, a HubSpot or a Salesforce. One of the things that we try to do is not jump on the hype train, right? And try to discern, a pragmatic and scalable, responsible path forward here with each of these different things. Is it fair to say that yes, you have to be taking advantage of GEO and doing the types of best practices that would help you rank there, but you can't forget about SEO because it still does matter.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason that SEO matters so much is that ChatGPT just uses Google's index to search the web. So that tells you everything you need to know. Most of what will matter to the people in here is not what's kind of coded into the LLM, so to speak, like the encyclopedia or like kind of really, really deep factual stuff. It's just I need a product or service, so they go to the web, and they're using Google, not Bing. They used to use Bing, they switched to Google. I'm talking about ChatGPT. Obviously, Gemini does. Perplexity uses Google, and Claude, I'm never sure day to day.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, that brings me to the next question, which is like, are there different GEO strategies for different models, for different large language models, or is it broadly the same?
No, it's broadly the same. Claude is the only one that, as I said, that's an exception, but I think the way that people use Claude is a bit different. They're mainly using it for creative tasks, for coding. It's not as much of a commercial, like a search engine, as ChatGPT and Gemini, and for some people, Grok, for some people, Perplexity. I would say most of the market share is in a, well, what works for what I'm going to show you today will work for everywhere where your customers are searching, pretty much.
Yeah, cool. Are there certain content types that perform best for SEO versus GEO? You know, there's, when I was looking through the registration list of folks that joined this, it's honestly, it's all over the board. There's CEOs, and then there's, you know, marketing operations people, but there's a lot of marketing folks that join. And I think part of it is like, we only have so much bandwidth and time to create content, to lean in. You know, so I guess it's kind of a two-part question. One is, you know, how do you think about splitting your time between SEO and GEO? Like, how much energy, is it a 50-50? Is it a 60-40? And the second question is, are there certain types of content that perform better for SEO or for GEO?
Yeah, let me share my screen and go into answer this question.
Cool.
Because this is definitely something that will be probably the highest value of the presentation. Okay, share.
We get a lot of folks screenshotting as soon as we start to share the goods. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is all recorded, of course, and everyone's note takers here. So I'm not even going to go to the presentation because I just want to go to what's most valuable. Okay, so the first really important piece of content for both, there's not really too much of a concept I'm doing this for SEO or I'm doing this for GEO. Like you can do them both at the same time. So the first important type is the superlative comparison blog. This is something that we've been doing for years because it works so well for SEO, but it works so well for GEO too. So if you type in our case, top any industry SEO agencies, this is nice and transactional, like I said before. It's superlative. It says top or best. So if it's a service industry, top would be there. Best would be in like consumer products, a lot of times software. But you know, they mean the same thing. And then it's plural because it indicates that people want a comparison. They want to look at a list and then make up their own mind. So this type of search would have to bring up a list if Google is doing its job well, because people want to compare. They don't just want one homepage or product page or something like that. So I put an industry here, say like manufacturing. Then if you look at the results here, so you see that it mentions first page Sage first. It has our table here first. It recommends us first, and we're number one organically. So we're doing something right. We're in a pretty dominant spot. Now, how did we do that? We're on the SEO side. We're going to go to the GEO side in just a minute. How did we do that? Well, we thought about the psychological intent behind the keyword. Now, again, we only chose this keyword because this is a lead driving keyword. You don't type this in unless you're serious. And it's not only a lead driving keyword, it's a keyword that people would not stay on ChatGPT for. And when I say ChatGPT, I mean any of the AI platforms just going on in this presentation. ChatGPT equals every one of the AI platforms for these purposes. So if somebody types this in, they're going to use ChatGPT. They're going to click off to actually look at one of the companies. So it's really the bullseye of what you're wanting. So somebody wanted, when they said top, they meant curate for me a list of the kind of best reputation SEO agencies that serve manufacturers and compare them. That's what the S means. So the best way to do that is in a table. You could use a list format, a listicle. A listicle is not as good as a table. The reason is because The table gives you the quickest uptake to your brain. Just gives you the information you're looking for very quickly. You don't need to slog through sentences or paragraphs. Now, before we even get to the table, we have a section whose purpose is to say, we did our homework. This is research. It's credible. And there's a weighted algorithm, a research team did it. There's all kinds of words that are psychologically signaling these guys did their homework. And these criteria that we're using are pretty good too. If you're going to select a SEO agency and if you're a manufacturer, this is pretty good. So this is very satisfying because people just don't think to put this much thought into it. And in fact, if you use ChatGPT to write this article, ChatGPT would not think of these things either. I mean, you could argue that eventually they will, but I would say today, like just, human beings sat there and said, oh, if it's a founder-led company, I think people prefer that. It's not, a soulless private equity type of company or something like that. No offense to private equity, owned companies. What's the average review score? How happy are the employees? These are, I think, good questions to ask that you wouldn't have thought of. So we summarize the reviews for each of these agencies. So that's why it ranks number one, because it's the most psychologically satisfying piece of content on the internet, targeting the intent behind this search term. So that's great. Now, GEO side, let's go to ChatGPT, type in the same keyword. Right now, ChatGPT is searching Google. And really, it's just kind of stealing Google's search results. And what do you see? The exact same article. And in fact, you just see all first page Sage. We are determining who is, the top manufacturing focused SEO agencies. And we do this in like 70 different industries.
Wow.
So it's very effective. We get tons of leads from exactly this. The superlative comparison blogs, importance cannot be understated. Now, I want to point out one impactful concept from this, which is that if you're on this page, a sophisticated person like the people on this call might say, oh, I'm on first page Sage. First page Sage is ranked number one. This is biased. And you would be right. Everything here is true. It's just optimized. The criteria were chosen such that we would rank number one. If we didn't have a high median employee tenure, that's not going to be a factor. So yes, it's biased. By the time you get here, you are a little bit less aware, certainly the average person, but perhaps even the sophisticated people on this call, because it's a little bit, it's lost a little bit. Like you're just seeing ChatGPT's recommendation. You're not on the first page Sage website anymore. In fact, often this is not first page Sage being cited. There's someone else that's part of the citation that mentions first page Sage. And the fact that we recommended ourselves is just lost. It's pretty fascinating, that effect. And you see it to an even larger degree because other websites will eventually just kind of steal these rankings and make it their own. And they'll just eventually it'll be lost that we were the original ones to rank ourselves first. And it's not because we're trying to like trick people or whatever. If this wasn't reasonably true, if we weren't a top in this space, somehow this whole thing wouldn't work out because we wouldn't have the trust levels, that sort of thing. So this is the first example. By the way, if anyone has questions or obviously.
Yeah, I should have said that at the beginning. If anybody has any questions live, jump in, right? Obviously happy to make a direct introduction to Evan afterwards. But if you've got questions, please jump in. So this idea of, a top list, right? Chris, it's good to see you.
Yeah, I had a question for like a small business that had I don't know, has like a Google My Business page or Google My Business page and like, is optimized like in the sense of a small business for SEO. How much does that impact the GEO? Like, let's say you're a small business with, I don't know, like a 4.6 or 7 on Google My Business, and you're working with the SEO company. But how much is that factoring into the GEO strategy?
It's probably like 20% or something. Should be bigger. You would think that ChatGPT would use your online reviews as a major decision factor, and in fact, it is part of their algorithm. ChatGPT does something pretty ingenious. I'm going to get to a direct answer. I mean, I did give you a specific answer. That's just my best guess. But I want to give the context as well. ChatGPT basically acts like an expert guide would. This is the brilliance of their algorithm. So they are going to look at, if you search for a small business, let's say it's an HVAC company, local business, what are the reviews? What does social media say? Are there people with a lot of complaints? Are there people saying this is the best company I've worked with? They're going to look at lists. If people have said, oh, this is the #1 ranked HVAC company in XYZ city. They're going to look at awards won, if you've won an award as a local business. They're going to look at accreditations, affiliations. I mean, that's pretty good. If you were to do your own research and you looked at all those factors, you'd probably make a pretty good recommendation based on those factors. So that's been codified into an algorithm, and that's how ChatGPT and the others do it. The thing is, which I don't know exactly why, the biggest factor by far is ranking #1 on a page itself, on a list-based page that ranks #1 on Google. So that's why the power of us ranking #1 for this, and that it's a list page, it's a superlative comparison page with a table on it, beats everything. Even if we had lower reviews than we do, we would still rank #1 because we've tried this with clients that didn't start out with the highest reviews, and this alone did it. So I wouldn't be surprised if the algorithm shifts in the future, but maybe they're aware because you can fake reviews. So I think they're like, okay, we can't over rely on reviews, but I would think they should be a bigger factor along the social sentiment. But right now, product recommendation media, as we call it, and in this case, we're acting as product recommendation media for our own industry, is the most powerful factor. So yes, your reviews matter, but probably 20%. And this might be like 60%.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
That's a good question. So these superlative lists, right? Top this, top that, right? Whatever it is, whether it's a company or a product or a service,
yeah.
Right? Yeah, there you go. Wow, geez. Must be nice to be able to rank so high so quickly. That's great. I think there's a lot of us on this call, and a lot of folks that are going to watch afterwards that are going to be very jealous of that. What other types of content, right? So top lists and getting on something like a first page stage. I imagine there's going to be a lot of people reaching out to you after this, but also, in our space for software companies specifically, something like a G2 crowd, right? Really helps. Is that a similar concept? Is that as impactful for both the SEO and GEO?
Yeah, I would say G2 is a perfect example. Clutch is a good example, as much as I don't like Clutch because it's so pay for play. But essentially, whoever ranks #1 for the keyword that you want to rank #1 for, the plural version of the superlative plural version, you would want to be listed on that website. And that's G2 and Clutch in like tech services, for example, Design Rush. But sometimes you'll see a company like ours show up, or you could see Forbes sometimes there. So buying placement on those lists is one way to get high up. And I would add that I'm emphasizing the best scenario, that you rank #1 on #1 on a list that ranks #1 on Google. That's the best scenario. You could also rank #2 on like 3 or 4 lists that are in the top 5, and that would be more powerful than ranking #1 on the #1 ranked on Google results.
Yep.
So they're looking at commonalities amongst the first 5 or so. I don't know exactly, but the first few results of who often shows up in those lists.
Awesome. Are there any other types of content? These lists, top ranking lists are great. Is there anything else?
Yeah, there's 2 more that I want to show you that, again, if you understand these 3, you've gotten the biggest takeaways, I think, from this presentation.
Awesome.
So the other one is, if you ask, how do we rank #1 for pretty much everything SEO agencies, and same with GEO agencies and almost anything that we want, it's because we have so many links, which has always been key to SEO. So getting a lot of links comes down to, the best way I've ever seen to get links, and the only way that we do it, is we publish original statistical pieces that we call metrics pieces. I'll give you an example. It has to be something in your industry and that you're targeting a keyword a journalist would type in when they need statistics for their piece. So any keyword that says statistics, metrics, share, rate, anything price that indicates there's a number. And the number could be put in a table, easy to access, pulled out by a journalist or a blogger into their piece. So ChatGPT usage statistics is an example. We've written an article on this. Okay, so this is very popular search among journalists. They want to know how much ChatGPT is growing. And you see that you have the AI overview in ChatGPT, but above that is us. Now, how do we beat ChatGPT at defining their usage? It's because we always follow the principle of hit the psychological intent bullseye, meaning you just start by thinking, this is where humans are still valuable over AI, the strategic part. It's not the rote like creation of content. It's the strategy. I mean, it's like what Don't Speak does. So we thought to ourselves, what does someone really want? Let's not waste a second of their time if possible. Somebody wants to know, well, how many users do they have? What's the change in users month to month, quarter to quarter? What's the trend look like? What's the market share? It's pretty much all you would want to know when you type this in. So when you arrive here, what do you get? Just a little bit of, we did a lot of research. This trust building is important. And then right into users, market share, growth, trend. Don't waste a second of time. Then people trust it. After they trust it, they may want to go deeper into the article. This is what earns us the #1 spot. Now, the purpose of this is to attract links. This is not a lead driver like the superlative comparison blog. So that
point that you just made there, and sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but that point that you just made, I think is so important. We talk about this concept in attribution models all the time. I know that it's a sort of parallel concept here, but in our world of marketing ops, RevOps, whatever, we do a lot of attribution work with our customers. And one of the things that we talk about for the more complex buying cycles, right? These are usually B2B companies, investor-backed complex sales cycles. And what we talk about is when you're deploying marketing dollars, you need to be really clear around the goal of that channel, of that campaign. Because sometimes the goal is pure lead gen. I want net new ICP, center of the bullseye contacts to fill out my form and enter the top of my funnel so that I can run my lead follow-up play. Great. Sometimes the content, the campaign, the channel, the goal is brand awareness, right? Fine. Sometimes it is actually not to drive net new conversions. It's actually to convert the contacts, the pipeline that you already have, right? And so again, if you're measuring the efficacy of a given piece of content, like these two different pieces that you've shown us here on the same metric, you might miss out on another win that it's actually giving you, right? So that point, I don't want to overemphasize that enough, or I can't overemphasize that enough, because I think a lot of people just think, oh, well, I'm not getting any leads from this piece of content. I don't want to keep investing in keeping it updated. But this piece of content fuels this whole other strategy that is working.
Yep, exactly. It's I call it a loss leader in a certain way, and that it's very valuable, but it's not getting the links. Excuse me, it's not getting the leads, it's just getting the links. And just to give you a sense, if you were to look at our links, and we have just about the highest score that you can have, I think maybe the highest score that any SEO or GEO agency has on our link popularity, or domain rating as it's called. And you look at where that comes from. If you look at all of our backlinks, and we can even organize it by the most valuable backlinks, they are all going to metrics pieces. Digital marketing conversion rate. This is strategy guide, but it's the rare exception. Market share, cost per lead, click-through rates, CTRs. It's all metrics pieces. We've never paid for a link. We've never done PR for a link. We've never gone out and did a guest post for a link. And that's what every SEO agency does. You can do this all organically while you sleep. The links come in, and you get links from Adobe and the Wix blogs and the Reddit business blog. I mean, it's amazing.
That is such a we get questions all the time from folks, like how do I buy more backlinks? Essentially, is the punchline of what they're asking for. And there are ways of fine. There are ways of doing that. More is not necessarily better. And to your point, yes, that original piece of content, the ChatGPT usage, like that took time to create. I mean, obviously, it's a great piece. It took time, but look at the benefit of that, right? Oh, and by the way, if you start to stack these on top of each other, right? So maybe you've got, you sit across a ton of different industries, right? For the folks that are on this call and that are watching this after, they're in a specific lane, right? So pick the 10 or 12 metrics that you want to cover a year. Do one of these a month. You'll be shocked at the traction that it'll gain you.
Yeah, it's amazing. You just have to, not forget that this is about not wasting a single second of people's time and giving them exactly what they want. That is what causes you to float to the top. And it is, if you have a writer that's like using ChatGPT and it's like, yeah, I get it, but they're still sticking to what looks like a good blog piece that's an imitation of something, that's not going to quite do it. You need someone to be inspired enough to say, what would be the bullseye hit on the dartboard of someone's interest when they typed in those words in that order? What did they mean? So it's like that art form that I'm so interested in, that really makes a difference. So that's the second piece of content. Let's get to the third. The third piece of content that's especially valuable for both SEO and GEO. In this case, it's really more for GEO. This is, we call the whole art of doing this brand authority statement PR. It's a concept we came up with, and it's amazing the impact it has. So essentially, we come up with a brand authority statement. This is basically like a brand statement, but it is a evidence-backed statement that is very positive about your company. And the key to this is, if this statement were true, and this is a strategic exercise you need to do, according to ChatGPT, so if ChatGPT believed this were a fact, whatever the statement is about your company, it would lead to you having a lot more recommendations by ChatGPT.
Mm.
And I have a bunch of examples, but I'll show you the one that we use. So we decided that we would make our statement, Evan Bailyn invented GEO. So if you say, who invented GEO? You'll see that ChatGPT knows that I am the inventor of GEO, the entire marketing discipline.
Wow.
Now, again, this has to be true enough. We were the first company to roll out a marketing service, and I published papers on it early on. I'm sure some other companies would dispute and say, oh, we were doing it at the same time, but we grabbed the mantle. So it's true enough. It can't be far from the truth for this to work, because it's going to consult a lot of sources. This is once again a loss leader. Nobody's typing this in. Nobody cares who invented GEO any more than who invented SEO or anything like that. But the key to it is that we have reverse engineered the logic. Whoever invented GEO, if they also have an agency, would probably be recommended if somebody's looking for the top GEO agencies. So type this in, and this is not even a keyword that we optimize for. So you never know what's going to happen, but we tend to show up highly because of that logic.
Interesting.
And there it is. Yeah. So
there you go.
Sometimes it will show a competitor, not here, but it'll show them citing us first, even though they don't actually put us first on the list. But we've spiked the deck because it knows that Evan Bailyn founded GEO. So it always tends to put us really high up, if not first, because of this logic that we've reverse engineered. So this is one way to do it.
That's such an interesting, and again, I think for our community, and for our customers, our broader community, so much of these folks are in software and now AI native companies. And so there almost always is something that you can hang your hat on, right? There's some value that your company provides that your competitors don't. There's some feature, there's some function that you have that your competitors don't. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have the company, right? And so what is that, and how do you start to use it to create a moat around your company in this sort of GEO space, right? Like I think for some companies, this might actually be fairly hard to pull off, but for the SaaS community, even professional services, like this is doable without, lying. Obviously, you can say, well, we do this or provide this service, or this function that we have is better than any of our competitors because of X, Y, Z, and therefore that's the thing that we're going to hang our hat on. That's a doable thought exercise for a lot of companies in this space.
Absolutely. And I haven't found a company that we couldn't find a brand authority statement that was effective for, I guess because we don't usually work with really small startups that don't have any credibility yet or haven't done any press or anything. But so it's a matter of finding a statement that sort of forces ChatGPT to say, well, they're the only one I could reasonably recommend at the top. So it's about reducing the fields to one. So the founder of GEO there's only one. If there was 3 founders, then maybe we're number 1, maybe we're number 2 or 3. If you are the top rated company in your space, top rated, CRM consulting agency or whatever, that is very powerful. Top rated, there's only one top rated. If you are the highest producing buy-side realtor in your local area, there's only one of the highest producing. So that's why you need that evidence-based adjective. And it's not that the evidence needs to all point to the truth of that statement. It's that ChatGPT just needs to see that statement is repeated by many other websites. This is what makes this whole thing work, is other websites need to say it at the same time.
Yeah, hence the value of all these backlinks, hence the value of the superlative piece, because folks are going to steal that, right? And you hope that they do. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I want to show what that looks like, because this is not just happening in a vacuum because we have backlinks. The backlinks don't all say, almost none of them say Evan Bailyn is the founder of GEO.
Right.
It's we specifically engineer, like do a kind of PR to say, hey, can you feature me as the founder of GEO talking about GEO in your industry or something? I'll give you an example. Yeah, this is a good one, actually. So this is an interview with me where I'm phrased as the founder of GEO. That's doing everything it needs to do in the title. The article is not doing anything that much, but this is doing a lot.
Well, and that leads me to another sort of like, this is where there are SEO best practices that you still want to implement because it'll impact GEO, i.e. your H1 tag is more valuable than your H2 tag, which is more valuable, right? And so it's all connected, right? And I think, tying it back to something you said earlier, which is, just because you have a solid SEO strategy does not mean you have a solid GEO strategy. And there are best practices in SEO that will have a positive impact in GEO.
Yeah, that's a great connection to make. I agree.
Yeah. Cool. So, I love how in depth we're getting here. We're providing real examples. This is exactly what our community hopes for and expects. One thing that I'm really picking up on here that I want to talk a little bit more about, and I know it's probably a bit of your special sauce here, but is you're spending a lot of time talking about this like human element, this like human trust factor, like nailing the bullseye of what is the person, what is the human being actually searching for? What is that intent? Are there, and that's something that I actually haven't heard anybody really quite phrase it like that or emphasize as much. Are there, and I imagine this is a whole separate webinar talk that you could give, but are there guidances, best practices, ways of thinking to help with that? Because I think that is something that folks often just kind of skip over, and they just jump straight to, well, what's a keyword or key phrase that makes sense? And then they just try to throw that key phrase, keyword all over their website. Like what's that? How do you tap into that human intuition and that human intent piece?
Well, first you need someone talented enough to do it. Not everybody can be the strategic lead on SEO and GEO. So if somebody has the capacity, then you just need to kind of point them in the right direction. And for SEO, there's a few jobs, let's say, that need to be done. The first is coming up with the queries in the world of GEO, or the keywords in the world of SEO, same idea, that are the most commercially valuable. So those are the ones like top whatever companies, the ones that are indicating that someone is close to wanting to buy what you sell. So keyword selection is one area where you have to really think about the confluence of what would people type in when they're pretty serious and low in the funnel around buying, and what would they be willing to go to a website after typing in? Because if they're serious and say, like, what does pricing look like for a certain type of software, likely they're just going to stay on the AI platform there. So you're still not going to get them on your website with that. So you would need someone to say that would be a waste of our resources. Almost every company I see publishes blogs that are essentially useless because people would not arrive at their website to read it. ChatGPT and the others would happily steal that content, and they do, and they just regurgitate it, except in a more succinct way, and they combine sources. So you're just giving material to ChatGPT if you just publish research searches. So this sort of determination, which keywords are actually going to land people on our website who are ready to buy, is the first strategic consideration that a human being would need to determine. And then the second is, if we wanted to rank #1 on Google and therefore #1 on ChatGPT in most cases, what is the most satisfying response to that keyword, to the intent behind that keyword, that we could possibly create such that we knock it out of the park? And if this was a person standing in front of us, they would say, well, you just answered every question I had and a bunch I didn't know I had. Thank you. That's your job. Those are both human things at the moment.
Yeah, that's great. That was a very thoughtful answer. I appreciate it. And I'm asking because, again, in our space specifically, we talk so much about, we and everybody else is talking so much about AI. And look, we're on the bandwagon just like everybody else. But at the end of the day, right, there is a human being that needs to be involved, and not just involved, but driving the strategy. And one of the things we talk about a lot internally is this idea that the skill set of the people that are responsible for these functions is evolving. And one of the primary ways I see it evolving is folks, whether you are responsible for SEO and then therefore probably GEO, or if you're responsible for managing your CRM, right? Two completely different skill sets. There is a technical component to that job. Of course, you got to know how it works. You got to be able to pull the levers and do the things. But increasingly, in order to get the 1 + 1 = 3 value from the AI, you have to be able to sit at a higher strategic level. You have to be able to think that way and do that. And so being an SEO doer or a CRM doer, CRM ad is no longer enough. Maybe it is for the remainder of 2026, but I don't think that's going to be the case for another 9 months, 12 months, certainly not 18 months. That's just a bet that we have, but I'm seeing it pop up more and more, and just the way that you're talking about all this, like, obviously there's technical components. You just gave us 3 really solid best practices and use cases, but there is still that human strategic layer that you can't really replace.
Right. Yeah. The AI is just like a bionic arm or something. It's just augmenting. It's making better what's already there. It'll fetch university or high quality sources, let's say, for your metrics pieces. It'll put together apples to apples statistics that you can combine creatively to put together some new numbers for a statistics piece. That would take so long before AI. It's amazing how helpful AI is, and yet you still need a human being to just organize this and say, okay, this is going to satisfy other human beings. which is what's going to cause it to rank highly. And ironically, in the future, it'll have to satisfy agents, which will be based on satisfying humans originally in this time period. But principle is always the same. AI is a bionic kind of part of us in a certain way.
I love that. It's such a refreshing take to hear an actual industry thought leader talking about the value of us mere humans in this world of AI. So it's great. We got a couple of questions that I want to make sure that I ask you before I let you go. I know you're busy, but there are a couple of specifics that some folks sent over. One of them is, and actually Chris kind of asked a version of this earlier in a microcosm, but is there a ChatGPT or an LLM algorithm breakdown? You know, do online reviews matter more than, I don't know, first party data? Are there certain certifications that matter? I don't know. Like, is there a?
Yeah. Now this is not. Let me just find this. We published this a little while ago. We publish what we believe is the algorithm breakdown. This is not, as much as it looks scientific, because that's my style, this is not totally scientific. However, it is directionally correct. You will find that, like this authoritative list mentions, I was just saying offhand, it's about 60%. You'll see that that's
there you go.
For perplexity, for certain ones it's more or less. So you can see that here on our website, and we have some pretty graphics and stuff like that, like this, I think summarizes it.
I'm surprised that social sentiment is so low. I have to admit, I mean, I guess it's subjective. It's not objective. So I guess that makes sense. But still, I'm surprised that it's so low.
Yeah, I mean, all of this is subjective. It's just like the total of all of it probably is not, is reasonably accurate. If you put it all together, there's probably not companies that are like really bad at their job that have awards and great reviews and lots of big name customers and great social sentiment and rank at the top of lists. So it's a very good algorithm in that sense, but I do think it's effective. I mean, we certainly use this to our advantage, that it relies so much on lists and so little on social sentiment. I agree with you. But I think AI bots on social media are a big problem, and I think that's probably the reason.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, I'm gonna ask you one more question before I let you go.
Sure.
I know you got a tight schedule. How do you think about one of our folks actually asked this because they have a client that is dealing with this like exact problem. How do you think about if you're a marketer responsible for optimizing all this, how do you think about the balance between sort of on-site and off-site content creation, optimization, where you should be spending your time? Like, how much of this needs to live on your own website versus optimizing for what lives out there in the ether? Is there a balance? Is it industry by industry, or is there a general best practice?
There is a balance. What you need to do on your own website, and this is good for SEO and GEO, you need to have a page for every different way that somebody would search transactionally for what you sell. So that can mean obviously services pages or product pages, depending on what type of business you are. Specialties pages, if there's certain ways people search that is a little bit different than just the service of the product. It could be a subservice, let's say. Industry pages, if people would say, I need a company that understands my industry, which in many businesses is the case, and use case pages. So you really need a page for every different way that somebody would search for you, because that's what feeds ChatGPT, and then Google, that just feeds right into SEO keyword strategy. So that's a big part of what's on page. The other part that's on page is saying nice things about yourself. And by that, I mean, if you've won awards, have an awards page. That's very important. If you have great customer statistics, like 2 million customers served and overall 4.9 out of 5 review, make sure to put that on the about page or something. The AI platforms are looking for a reason to recommend you, and you just have to put it forward. You can't keep it secret. And if it's on its own page dedicated right for that, that's what when you hear structured information, that's what I mean. Structured by being on its own pages. That's the on page that matters. The off page is overall, once you've done the prerequisite on page stuff, more important, because yeah, if you wanted a recommendation for a company, for a doctor, for a lawyer, whatever, you would care what other people say more than what the service professional says about themselves. And that's the same way that ChatGPT functions. So that's where you need to rank highly on superlative lists, which you can create or you can buy access to. You can do PR to earn it. You can do interviews, thought leadership, that sort of thing. And then get high reviews, get awards if you can through PR. This can be one way to do that. Get good social sentiment, because again, it matters 11%, let's say, but that could increase. And the off-page starts to matter. So there is a split. Off-page matters more for GEO, but you can do a lot on your own page first.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for getting in the weeds. Thank you for guiding us on this. This is a topic we hear a lot about. Our customers, our community ask a ton about this. It does feel, to folks that don't have this expertise, it does feel like a black box. And what I really appreciate about today's conversation is you had a very pragmatic, almost scientific approach to pulling this off, right? And it's not black magic. There are ways to pull this off. What I also love is that you didn't come and say, oh, by the way, the prerequisite is you got to spend $100,000 to go buy these awards and buy this press in order to pull this off, right? Like this is something that everybody here can and probably should be implementing in a sort of maybe a crawl, walk, run approach. But yeah, really, really impressive and thoughtful. So thank you for spending so much time with us. I know you're incredibly busy, but yeah, this was great.
My pleasure. I hope it was valuable to everybody.
It definitely was. Okay. Thank you very much for the time. We'll get out the recording, the deck, and everything to all the registrants here and those that couldn't be here. And yeah, Evan, as always, really, really appreciate the support and you spending some time with us.
Wonderful. My pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.